Hi, and welcome to the Divinely Inspired Woman podcast. I am your host, Patricia Wald-Hopkins. I am a modern mystic, and I am here to share with you the beautiful wisdom and stories from women that desire to lead their lives inspired by the divine within them. The divinely inspired woman is devoted to walking the path of her soul's calling, tuning into the divinity within to navigate life with ease and grace through all circumstances. She cultivates beauty in her daily life. She is here to share the most authentic self each day through thick and thin. So I hope you will enjoy our show today and that you will leave with an infusion of inspiration for your soul and for your day and living your life. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Divinely Inspired Woman podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Wald-Hopkins, and I have a beautiful guest with me today, Courtney. And Courtney, your last name, is it Bossarte? Is that correct?
Really close. Bossarte.
Bossarte.
Yes.
Okay. It must be, I always like to add the E at the end of things. So
Right.
well, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about Courtney, some highlights of who she is in this world, what's important to her. And so you are located, is this in Edmonds, Washington?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she's really about reminding us of our essential truth of who we are in a deeply felt and experiential way. I know that you come from a very long mystical path, remembering that you come from the supernatural and your divine nature, and this can shift paradigms and positively impact all that we encounter, all those people that you encounter. So becoming easily known by ourselves, the joy and of who we are. You're a spiritual lover who is focused on each person in a whole and integrated way, that wholeness that we spoke of before we hopped on live here. Mm-hmm. By looking not only the physical aspects of the human being, but the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects as well, providing each person with more information and more possibilities to choose to step into alignment with their highest versions of themselves. And I want to share a little bit more about an experience that you had when you were 7 years old, and you had an awakening with Jesus, where you were aware that you asked him to enter into your heart. And church became your temple, spending as much time there in worship and prayer as possible. Traveling the world has opened your heart, opened her heart, Courtney's heart, to understand that there are no boundaries in God's divine love, that there are only perspectives relative to what we have lived, learned, inherited, and integrated as personal truth. So, her journey has led her to learn to apply and integrate as many holistic processes, many energetic modalities of reintegration and remembering. So Courtney works with clients and students in small groups and in one-on-one settings. And she's, with more than 20 years of conscious practice, she integrates various techniques that she has acquired through her university studies, certifications, avid reading, and international life studies, and is firmly dedicated to personal transformation, consciousness, and evolution that she believes will also make an impact on a global scale, starting with each individual unique person. So you are also a facilitator of women's groups for the deepening of the divine feminine and self-empowerment, focusing on self-healing and reuniting of our true divine essence in and as oneness. Welcome. What a
Thank
powerful, a powerful energy that you bring here to us in your wholeness. So thank you. And where would you like to begin today? What is in your heart that you want to share with our audience, with our community, about your experience as a divinely inspired woman?
you. Well, the first thing that comes to me is love.
Mm. Perfect.
Since for me, that seems to be the essence of everything here. And my relationship to discovering more intimately what love is on all levels of relationship seems to be kind of the core foundation of how I live. And so even in our conversation, listening in love, listening with love. And then the question of what am I listening to, or what is being listened to, or what is listening? And even going deeper into that question of contemplative space. So those in this moment are on my heart as a conversational point.
Beautiful. And I feel that energy, that unconditional divine like love. It's just in your voice as you speak, and the spaciousness that you hold to honor the wholeness of all that is around you. This is very soothing, and I just wanted to acknowledge that presence of that here. And this love that you speak of, has that always been with you?
Yes, and I feel like any human being understands this gradient of love, that the challenging aspects of where I have wanted to be here, and yet I'm here. And I want to be in this idealization of, what this is supposed to be and feel like, and yet how to accept that love is present in the most dense forms, even the most seemingly dark places that's calling our attention, to sit with it and discover with the light of love into the darkness of our unconscious or subconscious spaces, and bring the awareness into that. That itself as a process of self-love or self-discovering within the mystery of our own unraveling, or even in a way of our own self-undoing of I am this to I am that, right? That whole space of becoming aware that love is in all of that, right? The this and the that. And then to stop making such distinctions in a way that cuts me off from the whole of myself within all of that. So yes.
Continuity, yes.
Great word.
Yes, the continuity. And it's interesting because you and I were having a conversation before we started recording about, I was moving my space, moving my office, and that whole part of I'm still part of me still in the place where I was before I started moving. At my office, I'm using that symbolically, and where I am sitting here right now doing, this interview with you. And what I heard when you, to me, what my heart heard was to love all of it. Right? Not to, I don't need to leave that part of me behind, but just to bring, just to hold that space for all of me. And so I really appreciate that message. And if there's anyone else who's experiencing some growth, and right, there's a lot of that, what are your words or thoughts around growth, personal growth, and that acceptance of those polarities that exist?
Yeah, I love that. What a great question.
The
word that comes to me is transformation. And that we could look at that same idea that you gave, the office space here, and then this new space here, right? We could look at that like the old version of yourself and what is going to be the new version of yourself. And then this space in between the this and the that as part of the process of discovering the that and the this, and yet there's so much richness in this contrast of being able to look at, and even in these almost micro steps of observation, as you move one piece of furniture to here, that changes that and it changes this, right? And it's also this little mini step in this bigger field of the whole of what is to be, right? And so each piece of this furniture moving is transforming each space. It's also giving lots of beautiful reflection points to what was, and also what one is creating, where the orientation is almost like a feng shui over here. Like, I'm going to move that. Yeah, maybe I'm not going to relate to it in the same way here that I did over here. And so all of this gives us a chance to really see how this new, we'll say new version of ourself that's in process is in becoming what it always was, that we won't see until this becomes the new this, right? It's only that it's here now. Yet in a different part of our life, when we see that this is now just a jumping stage to this also, right? Then we really get that this, your new office space will become an old office space at some point. That will want to transition into something else. And when we get that, this unfolding of ourselves is part of how we transform or seemingly change. And then when we can step outside of all of the changes and see life as this mysterious unknown versus the known, right? That there's lots of chances to really reflect on the what was to what is, and there wasn't anything wrong with that, right? When we can get out of the judgment and the separation of what shouldn't be to focusing on, and we can focus on whatever we want, that could be another question or conversation, but to see life in more of a holistic value, that it all serves part of a bigger picture of self-discovery, right? And that our self-discovering is certainly different from age 5 to age 20 to age 30, and each one of those could be looked at as a room that we're moving into, right? Then we start to see that this transformation is always happening. And that this polishing of our own inner diamond and our perceptual lenses are always being cleared and cleaned, if you will, to get out of the way and make room for something else. We become more spacious
More spacious.
in love, more universalized, more than, right, more comprehensive understanding of the old, and inclusive of, and also open to that mystery of what is to be, more curious of, and in a way more safe, because we see how love is operating in our lives, how consciousness is exploring itself, and that we are that looking into the lens of our experience and in a way defining it.
Yeah, I love the holistic view of ceaseless change and as human beings, right? And the spiral through each, that we're always going to be changing in this spiral of our evolution. And for people who can't see me, I'm like using my finger in a spiral, but just, going deeper and deeper into that truth of who we are, right? Like I think my truth has changed, not that I'm not who I was before, but like you said, there's parts of me now that I've entered into my my 50s that are ready to be online and to be seen. And so I feel like allowing the honoring of, like you said, the what came before is actually coming with you and in totality of who you are becoming. And it adds such richness and, like, I don't know what I'm getting. It's like this fullness of the wisdom of living your life and not separating yourself from any parts. It feels so it feels so good.
Yes. And it occurs to me when you say that there's a discerning factor, right? That as we get older, we recognize as part of us what we value more.
Yes.
We get closer to discerning what brings us closer to those things that we value, what has that, and then we tend to prioritize those things that bring us closer to what it is that we value. And so all of it is still part of our field, right? It's still part of who we are. We just pay less attention to that within our awareness, because what we tend to focus on more are those things that we do, we do tend to derive more pleasure from in some way, what we value.
Just letting that all land for all of us, because that feels really, I mean, it's profound. I think we often don't pause, right, and take that spaciousness to feel that gratitude for all of us, for all of who we are, the messy parts too. Yeah, that's beautiful. Let's see. I'm just tuning in to see what's arising from the field in this conversation. And I'm getting that there's something that you would like to share about the word that's coming through. There's oneness, because I know that's in your word, but something about your experience of that, of oneness in your life. Like, what is that about for you?
I have different kind of perceptual answers to that.
Perfect. I love it.
So oneness is an idea, and I've recognized that in my own life, following the idea of oneness has brought me to a place of almost seemingly like merging with no identity, which could seem like, in one way, if we looked at it through a psychological lens, could almost seem like a codependence kind of relationship where, you know, you're fused and in submission and everything's just a yes, right? Total agreeability and, you know, no resistance. And my sense is that is part of the whole. If I looked at the essence of energy of the masculine and the feminine as an archetypal energetic layer, that feminine surrender to the totality is part of that equation. And yet there's this no as well, and these edges that create form and structure and orientation as well, and learning how to define oneself by value, right? I'm going here, not here, and why am I going here, right? To ground oneself more clearly. So oneness is also having these attributes as well within that, where I have a lot of experience on the athletic side, like some kind of high level sports in my years, and being able to train for that, being able to focus and be very dedicated and have some perseverance and perseverance. I speak Spanish too, and sometimes these words catch me.
I do too. So that's great. Yes, I get it.
So having these qualities that also help to define one's path, one's walk, the ways one walks, right? Has been helpful as well. And so I have a lot of time discovering my no in my life of what it is that I want. I was also in the military for a long period of time, working in medicine. And so learning form and structure from that level of following rules and regulations and keeping some sense of order, and then finding what's the divine order within all of that, because that feels like we start getting into human values and then divine values, and really then everything on this kind of human path that leads us back to what seems to be one pointed back to the source, which is the essence where all resides. And yet we find that when we're in the essence of what all resides, actually everything becomes again all part of it again. Just the way that we experience it perceptually within ourselves now changes.
Right.
And that's such a unique experience to each one of us of what that is, what that experience of oneness outside of conceptual oneness, where we understand it on a mental layer and level, or a psychological layer where we, have the merging or the pushing away in this dance of polarity within, within our humanity. And then when we start to see that polarity is an invitation then back to accepting that both simultaneously exist
Mm-hmm.
and are not in and of themselves in contradiction
Mm-hmm.
to each other, that they both are right
Mm-hmm.
within themselves, then we ourselves start to move out of polarity, where we see that the essential truth is in both. And we ourselves are not conflicted within ourselves about holding seemingly opposing opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start to unify within ourselves these fields so that we now can play where creativity becomes more available to us because we're not in conflict between love and war, where love becomes this field. War is definitely an option, but we see from value what the
Mm-hmm.
limitations are of warring.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can more consciously choose our experiences.
Yeah.
And on some level, again, we move out of choice because our knowingness that arises beyond mind
Mm-hmm.
already knows that some actions have no inherent value to itself. So why choose it? It becomes more conscious of choice and the impact of choice to itself as love.
Mm-hmm.
Is that loving to myself, and is that loving to others simultaneously? Right. And so we become wiser as well in our moving from polarity back into holding the space within ourselves, where we almost are now witness to the arising of all that is,
Mm-hmm.
as we are part of that experience and experiencing within our own inner field.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I was feeling it as you were speaking. It's the I think, well, I don't think, but I feel like that oneness, when you finally feel it here in your heart, right? That's like the most beautiful gift I think that you can experience daily, if you can feel that at least for a moment, in that connection to all that is, even though you know that you have your own individualism and you are changing, but to know that it's just this continual energy field of oneness. I don't, yeah, it's just a beautiful, I'm visualizing it because that's what I like to do. But yeah, thank you for so exquisitely expressing that very complicated, mentally complicated concept for many, for myself too. So I'll stick to the feeling.
Yeah, I loved how you brought it back to your heart and your experience of the sensorial experience of what that feels like. And I'm also reminded that similarly within our feeling of within our experience of unity,
Mm,
there is no other.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we recognize that inherently, like the idea of polarity, if we looked at it holistically now and said that instead of a choice or a black or white, we can now represent black or white as being separate individuals, holistically whole within themselves, appearing as black or white, and we can still lean completely into the wholeness of that experience of the other, without aversion to that experience, and love that expression holistically within ourselves, right? that there is no other.
There is no other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Feeling the essence of love weaving through all the parts, right? All the parts that we conceptualize as parts, but it really is just one stream of love. So.
And I would bring that back again to value,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if we're anchored in a value that is about separation,
Mm-hmm.
that's where our focus is going to go in the moments that we're challenged.
Right.
When we see that we value unity, we value communion,
Mm-hmm.
union in the communion, in the
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
When we're clear in ourselves, we anchor that vibration.
Yes.
And we foment those neural pathways more and more within ourselves, where our nature just is doing what it does because we get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so those values, again, on that level of humanity back to divinity, become important. And yet simultaneously, divinity within our humanity has always been present. Now we're just getting out of the way. So either I do the masculine, this is just an idea or concept, right? Do a masculine way of saying I'm willing myself back to source and doing the work, or I'm doing the feminine path of surrendering myself to the divine, getting out of the way. And both are necessary and true and real at any given point, at any moment in our own individual path. That dance that's happening all the time, where it's both and, not either or.
Yes. I'm enjoying that. Oh, wow. I think that we have covered some pretty profound concepts and energies and frequencies and ways of being divinely led or divinely inspired, right, in life. Is there anything else that you know, like a pearl of wisdom that you would like to leave with our audience as we come close to ending our conversation today?
I'm reminded again of love. And there is a quote that I have loved since forever, it seems. And it is, I'm not sure who it's by, but it is, love is not finding the perfect imperfect, but finding the perfect imperfect. And finding the imperfect perfect. So love is finding the imperfect perfect. And that is happening in us all the time. That's a choice. Until it's a choiceless choice to just be love. Because we know it as ourselves.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautifully said. Wrapped up. Wrapped up in love. And I really want to, invite, our listeners to connect with you, to learn more about, your work and who you are, and what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website.
Okay.
So the easiest way to just to find out more about me and book a session if you'd like is integratedsoul.org. There's also some really great reading material there if you want to, if reading's your thing and you'd like to learn more about these things like holistic relating and relationship and love and our divine connection with ourselves and your own whole, you being whole and perfect already. So that's available as well.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure that I put your website address in
Thank you.
the introduction to this episode. So thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing your beauty and wisdom and love with us today. And just everyone just soak that frequency in and take it with you today and all days. So thank you for tuning in and stay divinely inspired. We'll be back next time.
Yeah.
Much love, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Divinely Inspired Woman. Again, I am your host, Patricia Wald-Hopkins, and I am so glad that you joined us here today. I hope you left with some soul food to inspire your daily life. And if you would like to learn more about my work, please check out my website, patriciawaldhopkins.com, and you can find out more about my divinely inspired practice and tools. So, thank you again. Have a beautiful day. Hi. I'm dropping in here with an announcement about a program, a new mentorship that I am offering. It's called Voices of Gaia, and it's about bringing your voice, your leadership, your life in alignment with Gaia's guidance. So if you feel called to learn more about this program, it's a beautiful, rich program where we dive into your essence, and if you so desire, we develop your business around it and really blossom into your whole lifestyle, this wisdom from Gaia that wants to be spoken through you. So if you feel called, reach out to me at patricia@patriciawaldhopkins.com. That's patricia@patriciawaldhopkins.com. There's no hyphen between Wald and Hopkins. And I would just love to hear from you and see if this is a good fit. So thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful day.